All right, hey guys. Cool. Let's start. I think everybody's trying to get through the day. So yeah, doing a real quick intro for what we do as a open and trustless messaging project. So we built something called Web3 MQ, which is eventually more aimed at trying to become the user layer for Web3, but the technical core is a messaging federated network. And so real quickly about the context and motivation. Our team we were betting last year that the bull run was ending, at least the last cycle, and we wanted to think about the next cycle. We thought it was a great time to build for the next cycle. But the thing about the next cycle is it's probably not going to be about high-end crypto traders with more layers of DeFi derivatives, right? Generally, it's going to be about more retail users or so-called next billion users. But the thing is, generally, these users require very advanced levels of interaction and user experience. But the thing about Web3 today is that interaction amongst Web3 systems is very siloed and it's pretty broken. So wallets and dApps, well, they can interact with the public chain, but otherwise they can't do anything else. Public chain is good, it's very consistent, but it's also known for being very slow, and that's not very ideal for user interactions. So the wallet can't really connect or communicate with other wallets. Same thing with the dApp, and also wallets and dApps can't communicate with each other either. And kind of the intermediate, somewhat awkward world that we're in today is that not being able to have wallet to dApp interaction means that, okay, it's hard to sign across devices. Say if you have a mobile wallet versus a browser dApp. And it's also brought about this paradigm where if you're playing a game, you have to sign very, very frequently, which is very awkward, right? And then also the lack of wallet-to-wallet interaction also means that, well, one really awkward situation is if you want somebody and that person has your ENS. We actually don't have our own ENS, so somebody took Web3MQ.ENS and somebody front ran us, and we really want to message that person, hey, can we buy that domain name for a certain amount of money? But obviously we can't right now. You feel like you could because it's literally an address, like an email address, but that's not possible because there's no infrastructure network for it. And also, group chats and whatnot, you would feel that, hey, this is a great way to do Web3 native social and communications, but that's not possible today. So what we're doing is essentially we're using messaging bridges to connect these different corners of the Web3 world. So allowing wallets to be able to talk to each other, allowing wallets and dApps to be able to talk to each other outside of the public chain, and try to make user interactions high scale, low latency, and very smooth. So that's essentially what Web3 MQ does. What it is at the technical core is that we are a huge ass federated network of pub/sub messaging. So for those who are familiar with like traditional backend development, pub/sub messaging is basically a model where anybody that subscribes to a messaging queue has to get all of the messages instead of a traditional message queue where, okay, any one consumer consuming it is enough. So yeah, so that's essentially what we are. Of course, we do point-to-point messaging too. And the whole network is federated, which means that anybody can join. Anybody can grow a new node or relay within the network, and we don't really control it. Even if someday we stop running the network, as long as the protocol is there, it's still consistent. Web3 MQ still runs. And that's what makes it trustless. And so also kind of the brief landscape today is that there's generally about two solutions you could use. One is us. The other is something called Waku, if you want trustless messaging. The thing about Waku, though, is that it was built around, I think, 2017, 2018. So somewhat old. And it has a very, very big scalability problem around broadband consumption. So what we did most significantly improving over Waku was that we made Web3 MQ a lot more ready for scale, since if you are optimizing for user interactions, well, you better get ready for a lot of users, right? So we're about 30 times more scalable than Waku and about 2 to 5 times more faster in terms of throughput and latency than Waku. And if you guys have ever heard of things like XMTP or Wallet Connect, which is the messaging protocol most people use to connect wallets and dApps, well, that's also built on Waku, at least the second version of it. And then, of course, there's another family that claims they're doing this, but in reality, it's just a Web2 API. Yeah, and then so originally like a StarkNet thing. So account abstraction was a pretty big deal, and it's also key that if you're serving users, right, you really want the technical experience and the user experience to mesh as well together as possible. And today we have like wallet keys and people hate it because of mnemonics and whatnot. But actually in messaging, you have to have another key, which is generally called the encryption key. And it creates a whole new layer of problems because, well, the same problem about how do you synchronize across multiple clients and how do you try to recover it once it's lost. All these problems are like twofold when you have two keys. And so for Web3 we've designed a abstract account, just like StarkNet. So most of these keys can be replaced if exposed, whether just manually replaced one-to-one or socially recovered. So both of these are possible in our system. And that also means that, whatever L2 we're on, say StarkNet, we could also support wallets from other chains quite natively because it's an abstract account and we're not essentially tying our own like user model to, one key system. And yeah, some examples of what you can build with Web3 So one example is a truly trustless dApp and wallet bridge. This is essentially what Wallet Connect does today. It's actually a messaging protocol. It's not a auth protocol. But the problem with Wallet Connect is two things. One, a lot of people don't think it's very stable, and two, it's actually not trustless. It's a completely centralized service, and so if anybody hacks Wallet Connect, they can actually spoof message requests. And if anybody signs it, well, signature requests, and anybody signs that, well, that's a valid signature. So that's possible currently under the Wallet Connect world. If you're using Web3 for this, though, it's more of a trustless relay network. So you don't really know who's running the network. It's trustless and encrypted, so a lot safer. Yeah, and then also you could build things like Web3 native chat and then groups. So PubSub messaging is very, very suitable for groups. This is actually how group chats are built today in Web2 using PubSub queues, using things like, say, Apache Kafka and whatnot. And then also, there's this also a very popular use case in Web2 social, which is follower feeds. If you think about it, Twitter is actually a huge PubSub service. So people subscribe to Twitter, Mark Zuckerberg, or no wait, Mark Zuckerberg is on our Twitter, Elon Musk or Mark Andreessen, or whoever you like. And then whenever they have like new activities, that gets published to the PubSub queue, which is Twitter, and then it fans out to everybody. So Twitter is basically that a PubSub service, and such services, followings, and notifications can be built very natively on top of Web3 MQ. Yeah, so that's about it. The integration is pretty straightforward. So it's one WebSocket actually. We've designed it to be. So anything, signature requests or notifications or DMs and group messages, all of them get routed towards Web3 MQ. It comes all delivered in one WebSocket. So all you have to do is parse those events on the client side, and then build applications with it. Yeah, and then roadmap. We're currently at this stage, which is we're going to release a incentivized testnet this March, probably in a week or two. It's fully incentivized. This is actually a first in Web3. Like Waku does not have a incentivization layer. It only has a transport layer. We spent the past 2 quarters writing a transport layer, but yeah, so that's where we are. But also we believe that Web3 messaging, there's a lot more to it than just sending messages. And so we're going to have another generation of a beta in the future 2 quarters, and hope people stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's a brief gist of what Web3 MQ is and what you can build with it, and love to take questions. You first.
some talk and is like I'm super interested. Like so what like my question is that what things you like in technical speaking, is it a kind of engine like you're able to, or you're trying to make another chain that like there's like a validator network that has kind of like a Web MQ-ish like software that tries to have a low governance.
So that's a great question. You could think about it's more of the latter. RabbitMQ is like a single device software, right? You put it on one device and then you have to figure out how to build that into a networked application. So what we're trying to do is essentially to take the single device utility of RabbitMQ and ActiveMQ and provide that through a federated decentralized network. That's what it does. And so in some senses, we are in L3. We sit on top of L2s. We don't do the assets ourselves. Yeah. That's
what's the incentive for users to join in and contribute to Web3 MQ?
So there's multiple layers of contributors, right? So one layer is of course like the fundamental infrastructure layer, where miners, if you will, they actually relay messages. They don't mine coins, but they would need to be really rewarded for what they do. And so essentially running the network. And then of course developers have to pay in terms of gas fees and whatnot, so that they could use the network. So yeah, that's generally a really brief overview. And then of course there's in the future there might be opportunities for like smart contract-ish logic on Web3 MQ2, but yeah.
So if someone's sending me a message because they're interested in my ENS name, where do I receive that message, or yeah?
That's a great question too. So generally, that's why we have to deploy. So one popular client to have is like a wallet, right? It's literally the wallet. It's the place that holds your keys. It's also secure enough to hold these things. Because if you're trying to log into Web3 MQ via another client, then you do have to log in via a wallet, and then we do actually have the encryption keys that need to be stored. So the wallet is the best place to do that. So for every messaging protocol, everybody's like eyeing every wallet right now. And then of course, naturally, at every application client, generally the way Web3 people want to design the experience is that, okay, in any client, you can view messages from any application. So it's interoperable. So yeah, that's something that people want. And yeah, either the client side or wallet side would be.
And so do you think you'll integrate with existing wallets or create your own?
That's a great question. I don't think we're going to make our own wallets. That makes us competitors with other wallets. That's not a great idea. We want to integrate with all the wallets and not just be a wallet. And making wallets is also not something that we're experts at. So yeah, for wallets, it would be more of a working together dynamic. Yeah.
Why do you need your own layer? Like for example, why does it need to be EVM or like what is the purpose of having a relayer and what is the structures that that relayer could be on? And
yeah, so that's a great question, because it's like public chains today, they obviously do some level of relaying, right, between nodes, but they're optimized for very, very different goals. And one thing is like transactional consistency is so important for public chains, right? You don't want people to be able to spend twice, or to accidentally have someone have $1 billion and then accidentally have somebody lose $1 billion, right? So for us, what we're optimizing by making a dedicated relayer is that to make sure it's fast, it's low latency, and it's also scalable across a lot of users. Because like the way blockchains are built, it's not really meant for a lot of users to do a lot of interactions in a short amount of time. Yeah. So that's why we think doing this as more of a L3 or a side chain is a better idea. Yeah.
And then they would only be able to use the messaging protocol on that relayer, or it could be for there be a messaging system with other L2s or L1s?
That's a great question. I mean, the good thing about messaging protocols is like they're middle people, so it's relatively easy. It's like most cross-chain bridges today are like messaging bridges, and so it's relatively easy to be, cross public chain. Yeah, so it's a matter of supporting that chain. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Next one. Beto?
All right.